Hello, everyone. David here. Welcome back to the DGR podcast. I hope you're all doing very, very well. This is episode number 87, and I have a great guest, a great return guest. I have Graeme Morris. Graeme was on with us back in episode 4. It has been one of our most popular episodes so far, and I think you should check that out if you haven't, and then also check this one out if you haven't, or if you have already. We spoke back in episode 4 about kind of Graeme's where he was in his career at that stage. He wasn't working in pro sport and he was looking for a job in pro sport. And now I kind of got an update from him. So now he's back working in pro sport. We talked about what he had been up to, what job he got, and what that role entails. And also we spoke about calf rehab. We spoke about some hamstring rehab and lots of other good stuff along the way. I think you'll really enjoy the podcast. Graeme is the man, one of my very favorite people in the industry. So make sure you give it a share for us if you like it and tag me and Graeme. That would be great. But apart from that, enjoy the show and I will chat to you guys on the other side.
Okay, so keep that one under your hat. That's between me and you.
Yeah. Gotcha.
That's an Irish phrase. Do you use that? Keep that under your hat.
I've heard it before.
Yeah. There's a funny video online which is a guy taking off. It's actually really like that phrase is really in my city in Waterford, and there's a guy like doing a skit and he's spreading gossip to his friend, like he's saying, I heard this and this, and then he goes, keep that under your hat now, keep that, and then he keeps going and he says keep that under your hat. So like, but then the next fella would just go and tell another fella and tell him keep that under your hat. And no one ever keeps it under their hat.
No. Someone always tells one person, but then they think they're being good because they've only told one person.
Yeah, exactly. So you're back. G-Man is back. You were on episode 4. Welcome back. How have you been?
I'm good, man. Very good. That was it was a while ago now, wasn't it? What's that be? Yeah.
That was released on the 31st of December, 2021. So that was released on New Year's Eve, 2021.
Ooh.
Yeah. Nearly 2 years ago.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Got a bit to talk about.
Yeah. So I think we spoke then. I didn't listen back now, but I can see the show notes here. That's a very good episode if people want to listen. But you were at a little bit of a, I don't know, crossroads in your career where you didn't have a job in pro sport.
Yeah.
And you were trying to maybe do a little bit like kind of online and yourself. And you were doing a little bit of your back training, I think properly at that stage a bit more from your back or your knee, or maybe it was a bit of both. So what's happened since then?
Well, basically, so I was trying to get a job that year and I couldn't find anything. And then I think what happened was I was doing a bit of online stuff, and at some point I started feeling sorry for myself, and which never happens. And I was just bored, so I literally, just went. I put in 30 days notice of my house, and I booked a one-way ticket to Thailand, and I threw everything in storage. And I was like, at the time I was thinking, this could be a month, this could be 2 months, but it ended up being 5 months. Yeah. So, and I just went over there and I was doing a little bit of online. And when I spoke to you, I talked about I was going to do write up a mentorship and stuff. I didn't do any of that. Nothing. I literally started training over there. It was obviously, I love my Thai boxing or Muay Thai, and a week into training there, they're like, do you want to join the fighting team? And I was like, 39 years old, why not? Let's have a crack here. So then I trained with the fighting team for like 5 months, and it was actually an awesome experience. It actually taught me a lot about athletic development, I think. Just being like training that long in the heat. I was training twice a day, up to 4 hours a day. I know what overtraining is now. You know, people say, when you say, "Oh, I'm overtraining." No, you're not. You're not overtraining. I can tell you that because I've gone way past that now. I know what overtraining is. So yeah, I did that for 5 months.
And does overtraining? That's the woke post that you see. Overtraining doesn't exist, or like it does exist. So does overtraining exist?
Yeah, I don't know. What I will say is that when you're training huge amounts, the fatigue will definitely mask your fitness. I'll say that. Whether or not, do you know what I mean? It masks your fitness. There was points there when I was like, I'm dead here, I'm not fit. But then you freshen up for 2 days and you just come back and you felt like an animal. So it's just about trying to get that balance, and probably
I think it depends on the sport as well.
100%. And like something like Muay Thai and that is like you can push the boundaries, or even boxing, you can push the boundaries of training because you don't have to worry about soft tissue injuries like hamstrings or calf. So it's very, basically you just get bashed up, and you have the odd. You're always injured. You always have niggles, but a lot of the time that's you've been kicked or you've been hit and you haven't torn a muscle, so you don't have to worry about those dangers. I think that's the big thing. That's why you can push the needle so far. Whereas if you do that in a running-based sport, then you're out of the game for a period of time, and you can't do that. That's the big thing.
Yeah, you're going to pick up a tendon injury, or you might actually be you'll pick up a muscle or a tendon injury.
Yeah, for sure.
Or tendinopathy or something like that. So it depends. You're probably you would struggle to overtrain. I actually heard Alex Hormozy, I think, doing a video on this. Maybe it was yesterday, where he was like, some guy was telling him, "Aren't you worried about overtraining?" And he said that guy didn't even look like he trained at all. So, I think I saw so many people in the comments, like physios and S&Cs, saying, "Oh, it does. You can overtrain. You can't." But like, in the gym, being a bodybuilder, you could probably spend like 4 hours a day in the gym, and you'd probably be okay. It doesn't mean you're training with the most intensity, but like you're probably okay. But if you have to sprint, maybe not.
Or you get rhabdo. But when I was talking about overtraining at the start, I wasn't talking about the actual definition of overtraining. I was just throwing that out there type thing. But it was actually very, very interesting. So I was doing a few hours a day online work and all that, and I was spending a lot of time training and a lot of time at the beach and a lot of time on the scooter trying to not get caught. But because I didn't have a license, no one has a scooter license in Thailand, but
no,
they love getting you for fines. But just kind of like around my own training when I was doing that, it made me kind of think, changed my idea on a lot of things. Like what I found was like with my strength training and that, it just becomes so general in nature, like so general. Like even like when I had my fight, I had 2 fights expensive, but when I had my fight at the back end, when I program for my athletes, I'll have like these peaking methods in there. I'm trying to, increase rate of force development and all that. That's probably different because I'm 39, but literally I was training twice a week in the gym, and my elbows were beaten up from all the punches and throwing. My knees were hurting from all the kicks, and literally I was doing like things like leg press, leg extension, leg curl, dumbbell press. Sometimes that hurt. Just like machine row. It became so general in nature, and it kind of became, this is just the glue that's keeping my body together right now. And I was just training around things and then just targeting tissues. Like obviously I had the dodgy back, the dodgy knee. So throughout my experience, I've learned certain things that can keep me healthy. Some of the stuff you've shown and I've stolen from your programs. I know certain things make me feel better and allow me to keep training along that period. So it was quite funny how, because of my specificity in my training just become, the volume of it becomes so high, then my actual weight training just becomes so general in nature. Yeah. That's kind of what I needed to keep my body.
You just want that. Yeah, you just want that stuff to help you feel good enough for your next session. Your
100%.
next Muay Thai session or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. This is exactly what I was doing. And it kind of changed my thoughts on a lot of things like that. Whereas, before I'd probably have, like if I had one of my fighters, which I still do to a degree, but I've kind of pulled it back now. I'd have some certain peaking methods. I'd be using some fancy stuff to get rate of force development, all that type of stuff. And now I'm kind of like, okay, how about we just, for my, like some of my pro fighters and that, sometimes I say, just use some of that power stuff before your skill session. Then just, get some neck work, some shoulder scap work in post training. And then you have your weight session is so general in nature just because you don't have time to do any of that stuff. And then I kind of flipped it and started doing more power stuff in outside of the fights, when you have time to actually focus on that, which is I've kind of flipped it a little bit in a way.
Because look, you're getting power as part of your sport. There's an element of that's there. Whereas in your off season or whatever it is, like you don't have a fight coming up or you're not training as hard, then is your chance to put that in, which is traditionally people would see it the other way around. Yeah, but
David, are you still doing a lot of BJJ or?
I haven't done as much for the summer, but I trained last night, and it was fucking horrible.
I can tell you right now, I bet you it's guaranteed. I guarantee you it's changed the way you thought about strength training to a degree, because you learn something small and technical. Like I always say to coaches, if you can have a chance to take up a martial art or a fighting type sport, you will learn very quickly how much you can change. So, say like we clinch in Muay Thai and you're doing a lot of like grappling in BJJ, but you learn the smallest little technique, and then all of a sudden that changes everything, and you're so much stronger in that movement. It's so technical, and when you think about that in a sport that's actually quite on the spectrum, would be quite a bit of a force dominant grappling if you think about it. But it's still so technical in nature, and I don't think a lot of like pure strength coaches that probably come from more of a like lifting background probably don't understand to that degree how like you can have so much changes technically, and how strength training just kind of supplements what you do. There's a lot of people like, I'm going to change your power output in your striking by doing this weight training, which is great. But today, like I'm quite experienced, but like I had a coach today show me a little thing to get extra snap, and I felt 2-3% straight away on my strikes this morning, literally. And I was like, well, I could have like tried to develop that over 2 months of doing a power phase, but I just that slight little thing technically, and I've got that already.
It's a skill. It's just a complete skill. All the skills are different of movement. So strength is so specific. I actually don't even like describing it in that way, that strength is specific, because it's probably the truth, but it's not accurate enough. It's not strength, it's skill. The skill is specific. The timing of the muscle coordination is specific. So like the strength work can, if someone has all these beautiful technical attributes, and then they add on a little bit of strength in the gym, a general strength on top of that, like that can be a very potent combination. But presuming that you're going to improve the sport by just lifting when you actually don't have the technical competencies, that just doesn't make sense.
100%. So the back end of that, I ended up having a fight at the very back end, which was quite interesting. I did 5 rounds, full Muay Thai rules, so threw straight in the deep end, no shin pads, nothing, just straight up elbowing. And it's quite interesting because in Muay Thai, you actually get better scores off like kicks, elbows, and knees rather than punching. So like that just means that like you're getting higher scores using like really hard parts of your body, just inflicting damage. So that was enjoyable. I remember the end of the third round, I tried to finish him, and I actually nearly finished myself. I gassed out, and I got hit on the ear, and I was like wobbling everywhere. And then my coach says to me at the end of the third round, I was like, I didn't think I could stand up. I thought I was cooked. And he's like, if you don't stand up, I'm going to slap you. And my coach was 140 kilos, 6'4", like huge, makes me look small. And I was like, this is going to hurt more than like not getting up. So, but it's about but the back end of that, I actually got a job offer, as you know, David. I actually had 2 clubs chasing me at the back end, but I ended up signing.
Hang on, I need to rewind. What was your promotional name for the fight?
Yeah. So basically, this is Thailand to a T right now, right? So you get the photo done and you're standing there and try to get a proper photo. And the photo comes out and I'm American now. There's a photo of a US flag underneath me. And my name was Grey Ham. Grey, Graey, space Ham.
G-R-A-A, was it? G-R-E or A?
I have to find the poster.
It was A. It was A.
Yeah, maybe.
It was
That's
definitely
probably
A.
yeah, the grey ham from America. And the funniest thing is in Phuket in Thailand, these trucks come past, like trucks, and it's like they'll come over the PA, like you can hear them from everywhere, like big fight promotion. And then I see myself on a truck, and I was like, this is so cool. And like I'd be walking down the street seeing posters of myself. I was like, oh, this is bad. And so
But poster with the name Grey Ham on it.
yeah, like even if the fight got cancelled, I don't care. I've got the poster, I've got the pictures of me next to the truck. I was like, even this fight gets cancelled, it's cool, man. Like I've got this.
For me, when you put that picture, picture of that truck, you were standing beside it, I think, up on Instagram with American flag, your head, and GRAY space HAM. That for me is the funniest thing I've seen on Instagram ever. I think about that once a week.
I'm not going to lie to you. I actually fly out. I'm in the off season now. I fly out to Thailand on Wednesday, and I'm like trying to lose weight right now. I'm 40, but the grey ham may come back. I'm not sure. There's a possibility here that I've been given the green light that I can have a little crack over the off season. I'm thinking maybe the grey ham needs to be released here. So
100%.
We'll see what happens.
You can't keep the grey ham down for long. You have to. You've one more crack in you.
Yeah, it's got surely.
So continue your story, Morris. Then.
Yeah, so I got offered a job, and I was signed, and I come back to rugby league. Before I was just doing like reserve grade. Now at this time I'm back in the NRL, the biggest rugby league competition in the world. Had with the West Tigers. Unfortunately, we didn't have a great year, but I learned a ton of things. And the actual role that I got was probably really suited me. I was kind of athletic development / rehab. So I got to run the speed and agility this year. Then I kind of I worked closely with the head physio, helped with the return to play stuff. So he did a lot of acute stuff and managing and loading, and I kind of just topped them off at the end with, if I need a return to play for contact or speed, or we worked together reintegrating guys back into training to try and make sure they're ready to perform. And I helped in the weight room with the obviously the senior strength coaches. So it was a pretty cool job because I got to work. I had my hands in a lot of different things and across a lot of different themes. So yeah, it was awesome. So I got another year there this year, so next season. So just reflecting on last season, things we have to work on. Obviously, there's a bit to work on when we don't do well. But yeah, I learned heaps, enjoyed it. So good being back in team environment. I forgot how much I loved it. Just being around the boys and I think I told you last time, like I was working with the AFL referees, and for me, like it was a good experience and everything. But like I love that winning and losing element, like working towards something like that. Like, yeah. So
yeah, seeing the fruits of your labor is nice. Working with athletes, and actually, I really like working with. Obviously, I really like working with rehab. Like, I think rehabby stuff can be really nice because there's a bit more on the line in some ways. Like, if you make a decision where you fuck up, like you're working with a hamstring, you're trying to get him back to play, and you're sprinting, and you do too much volume or intensity or whatever that day.
Yeah.
Then you can have a massive setback, and it's very clearly your fault. Whereas, or partly your fault at least. So there's a bit more on the line. Whereas with performance, like you could say, yeah, throw a bit more weight on the bar there, or do whatever. But it's harder to measure. I think
it makes you second guess everything you do, because you're like, oh, before I'd be like, yeah, just do this. I wouldn't. But when you're dealing with $1 million player, and he's like so important to be, with the team, you can't overcook him. You can't go too far, because if you say you have a hamstring injury and you speed him up and you come back too quick, and then you're in all sorts. Like people are looking at you and asking questions. So you have to be careful, and you have to be balance everything up and be quite cautious in a way as well. but then you don't want to undercook. You don't want to
Yeah.
go in underprepared either. So, yeah, it's a really interesting role. And
Yeah.
I think anyone does strength and conditioning, like typically people start off in that rehab role and then they move up through to like the higher strength end roles. But I think this and every strength coach will say this is the most challenging role because this is when or it's a role that you learn the most, because you're always like changing things and things change on the fly. Someone might not be moving that well that day and you have to regress or progress depending on what's happening in front of you. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
John Kiley's work around like periodization and talking about like how it probably doesn't work particularly well, and obviously like the big part of S&C's education in most educational spaces is around like this macro cycle, all these cycles that I'm going to program out for months and months and months on end.
Yeah.
That never made sense to me because I always had a rehab background. So when John like released all this stuff saying I don't think it's particularly useful for X, Y, and Z reason, like that automatically I was like, yeah, do people actually think that this like long-term planning actually works? Because my point of view was always in rehab, which was like, actually, I kind of just need to see how you present today, and also obviously have a mind on where we need to get back to and the steps we need to take. But I can't just presume you're going to be in a certain place today or next week. I have to actually see how you are and then judge the session off that.
Yeah, I think a lot of those old periodization models and that are based off Olympic type sports as well, where like they're going through these different blocks, and like in a field sport especially, it doesn't really work like that at all. It's Mladen talks about agile periodization, I think, where you could also say like vertical integration to a point. I think I'd probably say vertical integration kind of works pre-season for a lot of field sports where you're training everything but you're probably focusing on a few qualities and you're ticking through some of those traditional things in a sense, but you're still just working with what's in front of you really, and you're looking at guys or what's their rate limiter in performance. How do I address that to get there quicker? And if I'm doing this, am I getting the big rocks first? And trying to progress that way. Because it doesn't make sense to do really intense things if you can get something at a lower stimulus to begin with. Then you can leave that for a later date, so then you can keep getting gains throughout someone's career.
100%. What do you think was the biggest thing you learned, or what? Actually, maybe an interesting question is what changed from when you were working in sport before, and you obviously had a break then, and now, like what do you think you've changed as a coach?
Well, see, before when I was working at reserve grade level, essentially I was like in charge of everything, and now I'm put into a where I have a high performance manager. There's 2 strength coaches. There's me. There's a sports scientist. There's a head physio. There's other, like you're in such a big team. Then you've got head coaches, assistant coaches that all have a game plan, and you're kind of trying to then you try and say, I'm trying to run a speed and agility program. I have my thoughts on speed and agility and what I need to do, but then they all have their thoughts, and then the high performance manager has his thoughts. So then you're trying to, get your principles and things across, but blend it into the game plan. And that's interesting because you don't always get exactly what you want, but you have to adapt to things, and probably learning how to adapt and fitting in what I want to do with the general program and where we needed to be at. Learning all those different things like that. And also like from when I stopped playing footy, I was doing a lot of private stuff, and you'll see a lot of people like I always see on like social media and that, I can tell straight away if someone hasn't worked in like in a team sport environment, because some of the things they say, they don't understand. Like when you're in a private scenario, people come to you because they want to learn this and they want to do it. A lot of athletes don't care about if you're trying to teach them, say, a switching drill or something like that. Like, and to try and sell that and get that across to like everyone, you have to change a lot of the way you coach and break it down really simple, and then slowly just add things, and try and sell it across in a way. And then what works for one athlete you might have to change that scenario and use different reasoning with another athlete. Some athletes might like to see it, and then you teach them, okay, this is good for this, but for someone else, they don't care about that. So you got to come up with a new way to try and get that cell. And then to make them even care about those things, like when they're under fatigue in the season, like I'm just using it as an example, like they're just like, some of them just want to play footy. So like, hey, the way you sell this and have the proper progressions in place, and then you need a little bit of variety as well, so it's not so monotonous. Otherwise, they're just like bored doing the same shit. But you got to try and dress it up somehow different, because that the basics are pretty much what work, and you're just trying to get that across, but disguise it in different ways.
And they have to like you.
Yeah, 100%. Like you got to,
which is
yeah. I think I'm quite lucky. Like I have a personality. I think I can adapt to a lot of athletes, and really, I'm still just a young boy at heart. So, I love working with athletes. So I don't really have too much of a problem like chatting and getting things across. I feel that's one of my strengths. But definitely, I can see that being roadblocks for some people. And then you've got influential guys that
100%.
Have like within the team, they might have a greater influence on other guys. So it's interesting,
What were you saying about calf injuries before we go on?
I've always been messaging back and forth about Salaya stuff, and like in the NRL this year, you've seen a massive spike. Well, I feel like you have anyway. Like the calf is seems to be the new hamstring. And I've been saying to you for a while, like, I think how important it is, and it's pretty interesting. I found some papers. I'm not sure if I sent this one through to you. The one by Dawn, and it shows that across most running speeds, the soleus is the main propulsive muscle. And what I found was interesting was I think at around 7 meters per second, that was when it peaks. About 7 meters per second. And I literally I messaged a sports scientist from us today. The NRL kind of released like the loads, the running speeds from all the different clubs up until round 18. There's 27 rounds, but there was like a 20% increase from last year around that 7 meters per second speed.
What do you mean?
So say if you're running around 7 meters per second, this year there's been a 20% increase in that speed compared to last year across the whole competition.
In the amount of time spent running at that speed?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot quicker at that high speed running, not sprinting, but below that high speed running. It's probably where Soleus is probably really highly activated. There's been a spiking from last year to this year across all the different teams. There seems to be and then that coincided with a lot of calf injuries. And when people say calf injuries, I think a lot of the time they're talking Soleus. I think
Soleus probably.
Probably. I think so anyway, to a degree. Obviously still
I think if you look at that study, I think the one that you're talking about in the slower running, there's still I think even in slower running, I don't have it in front of me now, it was like 6 times body weight.
It's still high.
Going through the soleus, and then it gets up to that maybe 7 meters per second, and you're talking that's 7 point something, and then after that it drops a little bit. It
drops off, and the hemis and the hip flexors start really. If you look at hamstring activation from 80% up, that's when that dramatically increases as well. I think some tissue. I think it nearly doubles from 80 to 100 or something. Just about. Yeah,
and it starts super low in the hamstring. So you can get people jogging really early after a hammy injury, but even after a soleus injury, they're not even walking.
We've had guys that feel it walking, feel it jogging, but they start running quick, and they're like, I don't feel it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, what are we doing here?
Because do you think it's more just isometric then at that stage? Like it's more not fully isometric, but more and more they're relying on their Achilles at that stage rather than trying to lengthen and shorten the tissue.
Yeah, well, that's another interesting topic there. I sent you through that paper, the hamstring one, right? Talking about, the spring model, which is more isometric in nature, or isometric contractile element with the tendon working, and then there's that muscular type breaking eccentric contraction of the tissue. And I have my thoughts on it. The kind of tissues can switch between them to a degree. And I think I was saying to you, I think the submaximal stuff, it probably is more of a perhaps some of the tissues have more of an isometric in nature. Whether or not, even if our isometric contraction actually exists, I'm not sure. But
whether it even exists, because
but
it's
I'm
trying
sure
to shorten all the time, like even when it's lengthening.
Yeah, even when it's like when they're saying it's isometric contraction, I'm still sure. In my head, I still feel like the sarcomeres are probably lengthening to a degree, because if you look at some of the papers on overcoming, I haven't gone that deep down this, so no one call me out and say you don't know what you're talking about. But I feel like whenever I read stuff on overcoming or yielding isos, they say yielding has more of a eccentric type adaptations, and overcoming is more concentric adaptations. For me, it probably means that they're going down that route to a degree.
But both of them are still like, there's still an oscillation occurring, because like you can't, there still has to be this oscillation occurring as far as I'm concerned, because like it's not like you just get to a point and you stay there. There's a tiny oscillation that has to occurring if you look at the forces. So like surely that's happening at the muscle as well,
Yeah, and now that even I've been reading the last couple of days that certain parts of tissue can be.
Hey guys, just a super quick break from the show. I just wanted to tell you that for our foot, ankle, and Achilles program, we actually just added a bonus section to it. So there's already 4 phases worth of foot and lower leg training. It shows you the exact step-by-step system that I use with all my lower leg and foot clients, and then we had a couple of people asking a little bit around big toe stuff, about improving flexion, extension, and strength around the big toe and the forefoot in general. So I added in a bonus big toe awakening sequence there as well. So for those of you who've already bought it, the 3,000 almost now, you'll see that bonus at the end of the whole program. So there's the education, the 4 phases, the plyometric work, and then you'll see the bonus at the bottom. For those of you who haven't got it yet, same for you. So make sure you jump on it. We'll put the link in the show notes, and you won't regret it. It's been our most popular by a mile program so far, and I absolutely am very proud of it. So check out the foot, ankle, and Achilles program in the show notes.
Lengthening, while certain parts of the same tissue can be actually shortening, and then you're like, just throw everything I learned at uni out the window.
Which is just like, a muscle is lengthening or shortening, but there's different parts to it, like so.
But with that whole hamstring debate, I think there's enough evidence to suggest that, like, when there's really, really high speeds, there has to be an eccentric muscular contraction, I believe. Mm-hmm. And that paper, I don't know, I think I sent it to you. You should read through that. I think it's really good.
Yeah,
so,
I didn't read through it yet, but for me, I've actually gotten past the point of caring, like in terms of, not that I want to know more, but like in terms of how I train it, it's not going to change how I train it, because I think you need to be strong in all these positions and just have really good running then.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And when everyone was saying just do isometric contractions, I was like, well, hold up. Like an eccentric contraction, like this, like super maximal stuff gives you adaptations that are beneficial towards being resilient to that anyway. So like that didn't make sense. And then I think we all just agree that, you use different contractions, you're using different angles, you're using different movements to try and make them more robust. But then you have to have, for those running, you have to be using different variety of running to that's going to be a lot more specific in nature anyway. And just trying to get that technique down pat's probably the big thing, but
I
think you just mix it.
Yeah, I think, like, if I'm looking at hammy and they're strong, they're already strong through the hamstrings. Like, I'm just looking at a big one for me is like, are they getting that swing leg retraction? Are they getting that cross extensor reflex? Like, in the timing of it, of course. And can they actually use their hips? Yeah. They're the 3 big ones for me. So how would you rehab a calf? What are you thinking? Or how would you? What do you think you would do then to 2 parts of the question too? Because it seems like because hammies was such a big topic over the last decade, there hopefully is a little bit less hammy injuries now, but then there seems to be calf is like the new one. So I think you just put in more calf raises and hopefully prevent more.
Well, what I'd say is, first of all, have a calf program in place, because I feel like a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
I think there's no such thing as magical muscles, but there's muscles that are needed for certain movements, and they're very important, have very important roles for certain movements. And like as we were saying, like soleus is really, really important. And I think if you're a team sport athlete or a running based athlete, you need some type of calf strengthening in there. Typically, like we probably I think that whole capacity to strength to power type thing, in a way, you probably start there. But I'd probably, you go have your bent leg variation, you have your straight leg variation. Now, obviously, like if you have like calf raises or seated calf raises, or you use a Smith machine or something like that, that's probably the best way to overload the actual tissue. But I don't like the stuff you do, because I feel like that kind of coordinates it in with the movement and gets the other tissues, the intermuscular coordination with the other tissues is really important. So for me, I know that bent knee to straight knee one you do against the wall. I really like that for all my athletes. I always throw that in. I think that's really important. But then I think you can have like a bent knee and a straight leg one, and then you can have a dynamic variation one day, and on the other one you might have an iso variation, and then you flip that the other day, where the dynamic one becomes iso and the other one becomes dynamic. And then I think if you go along a continuum, you could just start off with capacity. Maybe the iso is 30-second holds, and then they kind of become switches with like they're coming down in time, but you're increasing the load over time, and you're kind of building strength that way. Where the dynamic ones, you're probably just adding load to it. So I feel like that way you're getting the overload, but then you have the coordination ones as well. So you're kind of bringing it all together. Does that make sense? That's kind of sense. That's kind of where my head's at the moment with it all.
Yeah. We get my clients and my athletes and my whoever is not just like who are injured, but we train a lot of people as well who are maybe rehabbed with us at one stage and now keep going, but they get so much bent knee work in their gym work because so many of the exercises that I use involve for positive shin angle and really pushing through that midfoot and that forefoot and Bulgarian split squats and all that stuff. Like we're getting people into these positions and they're driving hard through the floor and they'll feel their calf and their foot like light up. So we have that constantly.
Even like your single leg hamstring bridge, like you're feeling the calf more than the hammy sometimes.
Yeah. So we get shit ton of that. And then I usually throw in like for an athlete that might be at risk of something like this, so a field sport athlete or whatever, like one set of max calf raises with they can do a double leg or single leg straight knee with a bar on their back, like either just a bar or maybe like 40 kilos on their back or something like that. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. They can just start off with even just body weight, one set, and one day a week they do one set of that.
Yeah. You can put that the back end of the week type thing.
Yeah. I think that works really well.
And then obviously,
to be honest.
And obviously you have all your plyos and progressions in place there. And obviously plyometrics at the moment seems to be the big buzz thing. I kind of feel like at the moment it's kind of come back, made a massive resurgence. But I feel like you have to be careful with plyometrics as well, because especially in like you got heavy athletes and things like that. Like you got to be careful. Like, I mean, Hank Krahenhoff always talks about you have cats and cows. And some people don't, some heavy athletes won't respond to them that well. You got to be careful to kind of fall, especially when they're coming back with a running program as well, and you got to account for the load. If you're just like say an amateur athlete or a semi-professional athlete where you're not getting as much running like reload, you might only be running twice a week. You can probably go smack bang hard on that. But, like I always find the plyometrics is you've got to be pretty careful with like in a running based professional sport, especially say if you're in preseason, you've got a 25-kilometer week, which involves a lot of high speed running, sprinting, change of direction, deceleration. you got to be careful how you put it in and how you place it so you don't overcook them, because if that makes sense. So yeah, obviously, like you got your jump and hop variations and all that in there, but you got to try and find that right balance for the right person and how you do that. And that's probably a case of person to athlete to athlete scenario type thing.
Yeah. That's why the plyos is it's a long-term play, which isn't always which you don't always have a chance to do in pro sport or any sport for that matter. But like, it really needs to be a long-term play where they're doing it from a younger age. They're doing it all the way through. They're doing it even in their off season, 1 or 2 days. You see all the Achilles ruptures coming back. NFL's like first couple of weeks, all these Achilles ruptures. You wonder, it's a mix of like, what were they doing in their pre-season, and have they done any plyometrics type of thing?
Oh, exactly right. But I think what you'll probably find is that they have a limited preseason time. Like, it's a small preseason. Like with us, we have 5-6 weeks before Christmas, and then we have another 6-7 weeks, and we've got trial games. So we have that massive period of time where I can actually put some of those things in place, but I just do it with low volume to begin with, and we just kind of like start it with low volume, because you've got to account for the height, the volumes of the preseason running. So you kind of you're just taking that more of that slow cooking approach, where you can gradually increase intensity and complexity over time, but the volume's probably going quite low. But with the NFL thing, like, man, everyone's talking about that now. Everyone's got.
I know. I did a post on it yesterday, and I was even cringing. I took a different view, which was like, I'm not going to talk about the injury, just some of the rehab. But like, I was even cringing putting up a post because the amount of people that just jump on it, it's so cringe. What? No. As in like the amount of people that jump on it, as in, I'm gonna like, I could have solved this injury. I could have fixed this. I could have prevented this. Like, thousands of physios are just, and SSEs are just licking their lips when they see an Achilles rupture. You know. Yeah,
they forget that he's 40 years old, and there's always different things. And we all know it's very multifactorial. But I mean, it has been. I think there's been quite a few this season already, right? But I don't know. Just probably they're limited. They probably have a limited preseason. I think it's shorter than a lot of other sports. And then you kind of think whether or not did guys. I'm not saying this is what happened to Rogers, but whether like on the whole did everyone have long enough to prepare? Because let's face it, the outputs these guys are putting through their body is like extreme. It's like huge.
Yeah. And did you see the mechanism? Like, did you see the tackle? How he got hit, and his heel was dropping, and this fucking monster fella was just like, like, that could have happened when he was 21, like, and it's 100%. Just one of them things.
Yeah, like a lot of times everything could have gone wrong, goes wrong at the same time.
Exactly. So with the plyos, this is another like thing with the rehab side of things, because in rehab, the amount of, I get so much good time to work on plyos with people. Which is amazing. Like me and, I don't know, do you know Peter Wright, PT Performance, he's called on Instagram, GA guy, SNC. And him and he's been working with a GA player has been one of the best players in the country over the last 10 or 12 years. One of the very, very best. And they came down together just for a session, and we were looking at his plyos, like, and he had a pretty bad injury a couple of years ago, and we were looking at his plyos, and he was saying like he never did this stuff ever, never had the chance to do it, and he's saying like, I don't feel great doing this, or I'm sorry, like, I don't feel like I'm that explosive. And I was like, you're 31 years of age now, and other lads at this stage are usually like plummeting in their reactivity and their explosiveness, and you're getting the chance to actually not only, it's still a low-hanging fruit for you, like, you're getting a chance to train this and improve this at this age. So, but he probably would never have got that chance. He would have got that chance, but it never would have been a priority if he didn't get injured. So like, rehab is such a good chance to actually change people's habits and views on things, and get some good work done.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And like it's funny, Dave, because like a lot of those like exercises that I got from you, I always like bleed that in through the rehab process, and like like I see now when the guys reintegrate back with the team, like we always have after a team meeting, they have individual prep. So they have a period of time where guys can do their own thing, and like based off a lot of their like previous injury history and that, they'll have set things they can do, and someone kind of goes around and monitors that. And then we do a team prep, which I run, and that the theme of that team prep will be depending what I'm doing on the field. So if we have if I'm going to do some max velocity stuff on field, or some high speed running technical stuff, that theme within the gym will bleed into that. If there's a change of direction on the field theme, that what I'm doing in the prep will bleed into that. But like I always try and sell some of the stuff you're taught, because let's face it, if you try and teach just someone that it's different to like a private scenario, like as I said to you before, like if I try and get someone to do a breathing drill, and it's in front of 30 other athletes, they're probably not going to buy into that straight away. I'll give you an example, like a supine cross connect, and they kind of got your hand up. Guys aren't going to do that straight away. But if I grab someone, I go, okay, I'll test their internal rotation, so they see it, and then I might get them to do like a side lying arm bar where they're rotating over, and then after 8 reps, I show them the hip internal rotation, and they're like, holy shit, So I'll start with something like that, what I think guys will need, which is more a bit. It's probably not like. It's probably more. How would you put it? Like it's an easier sell. And I'll integrate them. And I might do some like 90-90 knee rolls, something like that. And I go, oh, that feels really good. And you sell it like that. Then a week into it, when they're starting to feel better, I might bring in something like that, like and then they're like, oh, but then they're kind of like, you've already kind of hopefully sold it to them, and they're much more likely to do it. So it's pretty cool when I look across, and I've got a couple guys doing that in the.
And you haven't told them to do that. They're now doing it.
They're now doing it. They feel it now. And a lot of the time you just got to get guys to rather than just selling it, you let them, like, if you show them the results to start with, but then let them, like, I think if you feel it.
100%. It's you have to offer proof in many ways. But you get that in one-to-one as well in rehab, like where you're one-to-one with someone and you think that they really could do with a breathing drill or whatever. Actually being smart about how you program it. I talk about this in my workshops all the time. There's such a, right, so let's say you have an athlete come into you to work one-on-one. It could be rehab, it could not be, but you're working one-on-one. They're an athlete who's a rugby player. And they kind of identify as, I'm someone who needs to work hard. Like, I like to grind, this type of thing. There's a big, and you decide, right, Jesus, I could do with getting their ribs to move a little bit. So how am I going to get this to happen? There's a big difference between doing like A1 is a breathing drill, and then A2 is a hip shifting drill, and then A3, and then B is hard exercise, a foam roller bridge, or because that naturally makes sense to them, because it's like, oh fuck, I'm feeling my hamstring there. Yeah. So there's a big difference between A1 and A2 being that, and then B being a foam roller bridge, or choose an exercise, a hamstring curl, a deadlift, whatever. Or versus it being A1 is a foam roller bridge, and now when you're lying down resting after your set, where you just realized you've never felt your hamstring working as hard in your life, A2 is now a breathing drill. And they won't argue with you then. So like just being kind of smart in this way. I think a lot of people that say to me, like, my clients won't do breathing drills, blah, blah, blah. And I have empathy. I have complete empathy with team sports, where I know it's not always easy to fit in. 100%. I understand that. But there's always better ways to sneak things in.
Yeah. And then, as I said, I try and sell them with those other drills first. And when I think I've kind of got them, then I might show them, hey, this is something, you might get some benefit from this. I can't try and tell them, like, hey, you're a sports car, and you need to service the car. Yeah. And this is the pit stop, that keeps you going.
100%. What's the training week look like, and where are you now thinking about? I know you don't always have the most complete control over this, but like, those guys need to be very strong, very robust. They need to have a lot of muscle on their body as to be protective. So like, what's your thoughts now on that and the exercises and the loads and the compressive kind of movements that you need to use to keep them strong and keep them big versus what those things might take away from them, and how you might, how do you figure out that trade-off?
Well, first of all, you got to. It's a fine balance, because we kind of like have different buckets of athletes. We might have the guys that are really, really strong, don't need to really increase their force anymore. Just probably focus on a bit more power and keep a thread of like the force in there. But then we have quite a young side as well. A lot of guys coming through pathways. We had a number of players that were 18 years old and were exposed to NRL this year, and we even had a kid that was 17. So like we had a number of 17-year-old, 18-year-old. These guys, you just got to put. To be honest, truth is, you got to put mass on them, and because otherwise they could play a couple games, but they're not going to be able to play a full season. It's just not possible, because they're going to break down. They can't withstand it. They can't withstand the forces. So it's really important that that you put some of this mass on them. And that's one of the reasons that like people, they actually over probably their career, they probably get slower. Because when they're 17, 18, they're probably running faster, and they're not faster, but they probably won't improve their speed that much over their lifetime, because they're actually putting on size throughout their career. But their momentum will significantly get better. Okay. So like when I say momentum, I'm talking about their body mass and their speed, which is rugby league is a collision-based sport. So it's really, because basically the difference between union and league, we run back 10 meters, right, from the defense. So the defense runs back 10 meters, and then you're always running, bang, 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 and you're trying to find that opening, right? So you need to be able to withstand those forces. So if you have a developmental player, it's really, really important that you can get them resilient and robust in all those areas, put some size on, and probably increase their force output. Then for the back end of that, you might have guys that are being around and they're in like the early 30s or getting toward, the late 20s, and you're just trying to keep a thread of a few of those things in there, but you're trying to keep them feel good. And, that's when they probably have a little bit more autonomy with what they, you give them a little bit more say, what they want to do to a degree. And, like they might not back squat because they don't like back squatting. So you get them a belt squat. You know what I mean? Things like this. So I think it depends. And for me, you always got to have, power. You always got to have force output. You always got to have resilience and robustness around those key areas. And it's really important that your joints move properly, so that all these tissues are functioning properly on the field. So I think a balance of everything.
Yeah.
But then obviously, as we talked about before, how much you do of each one probably depends on where you're at.
Yeah. Are you selling many online programs now?
Bro, I've been saying for how long I'm going to do a new off-season one. And I thought about starting to write it today. And I reckon I could write it probably in a day and a half. Probably quicker. It's all in my head. And then for some reason, I just don't do it. But I'm going to do a new off-season one for sure. I've got a few.
As in like an updated, to replace the previous one. Yeah.
But I'm going to change it and put all the new things that I've been doing, because that one's probably four years old, and I've changed. You know what I've been doing? I can probably tell people what I've been doing with a lot of my online clients is like that first GPP phase. This is all my online clients. I've been doing like let's say you got a Zercher or a front squat one day. You might have a RDL or something on the other day. Is like week 1, you do like a 3 or 4 second hold for 5 reps. And then week 2, you do 2 second hold. Week 3, you do 1 second hold. And the last one's just like dynamic. I've been finding it works really, really good. Guys get really good in those movement patterns. And then outside of that, there's some basic accessories and a lot of just trying to get some capacity and strength in those, as I talked about before, hammies, soleus, adductors, those areas that are prone to injury. And then a lot of movement. Yeah. And then obviously
you need to answer my question. And you're making money online.
Yeah, I am, but I need to make more. I'm not making the Big Daddy David.
As yeah, it's tricky to work. You're working a full-time job, and like you're obviously not putting as much emphasis on social media. Then
I'm going to tell you one thing. Like, it's funny. Like, I used to post a little bit, quite a bit, probably a lot more. I used to write for Kia and stuff.
yeah,
It was because at the time I wasn't getting the job I wanted, so I was putting this information out there. And the second I've got the job I wanted, I've kind of just fallen off the complete. I've stopped posting, and I probably should just put a bit more out there because I'm pretty sure some of the stuff I'm doing people will probably find interesting.
Oh look, there's no doubt about that. But it's not a should thing. Like you should. It's not that you should. It's that if you want to. Like
I don't know. Like I do scroll through Instagram a bit and stuff, and like I feel now I don't post as much. Back in the day, I used to post all this training stuff, and now I'm posting like memes and things about Top Boy. It's kind of like I feel like when I look at Jonas's stories, he's doing something similar. Like it's not he goes down that route of training. You're like, nah, I'm just gonna, you know.
Do you not watch my videos?
Yeah. You know what? I've got that highlighted because I haven't gone through your online platform for a while. But I'm gonna, Dave. When I go through, I'm a bit weird. When I find something I want to go through, I just hammer it. Like that hamstring paper, I saw it yesterday. I went through. I found like 6 other references, and I've gone through all those papers today. And I know Angus Bradley says, "Oh, you don't need to read research." Well, guess what, Angus? I like reading research.
I thought that was going to be a stronger next point. Well, I like it. I thought you were going to say, "Fuck you, Angus."
Yeah. Well, no. Christina goes. He'll say, most trainers don't need to do it. They just need to read books. Well, guess what? I don't want to be like most trainers. So, like, I went down that rabbit hole today, and I was like, I thought it's getting me all excited. So, but what I'll do is I'll get onto your platform and I'll smash that out one day, and I'll go through it all, and I'll kind of move on from thing to thing, depending on what I'm interested in at the time.
Yeah. I didn't even mean the platform though. I meant Instagram videos.
Yeah, well, I'm going to try and start pushing a few.
You need to throw me a like every now and again, or comment.
Okay. I'll feed your algorithm, okay? The grey ham will feed the algorithm, don't worry.
But you have your products there, like, they're there for sale. So like most of the hard work is done. It's just about
yeah. And I've got this thing called Fight Club now as well, which is pretty cool. I set up that other page. I got a Muay Thai athletic page, and it's quite funny because like that kind of the strength and conditioning in that is a lot I feel like it's a lot further behind, say, field sports. So I just keep it super, super basic on that. And like that's kind of a little bit more of a niche market there because I feel like people don't have that experience or don't know what to do. Because basically a lot of people just doing like push-ups and things like that, road running all day, and that's kind of getting big. So I've got that. And then I've still got my off-season, my pre-season, in-season products and things like that. But I'm going to update that.
Is the fight one? Is that a follow-along program that everyone?
Subscription.
Like a subscription,
yeah. Subscription based, yeah.
How's that doing?
It goes all right. Like it just slowly ticks away, And like you kind of make it like a template, and you say to people like pick and choose what you need to do. I think that works quite well.
Yeah, man. That's good. Anything else for us?
No, mate. Don't think so. Yeah. I mean, I'm off to Thailand on Wednesday, so I'm sure I have some stories for you later.
How long are you going for?
Just pushing a month.
Where in Thailand do you go?
This time I'll go. What's where I was last time? Phuket, but I go down the bottom, away from the real party area. I try and get away from that. Just do the odd Saturday there.
Is it nice? As in, like, if you're not partying, is Thailand a good place to go to?
Yeah, it's unreal. Like, The beaches are awesome. I love the food. I think the coldest it's going to be is 25 degrees. That's a low, like during the middle of the night. The only thing is this time of year, hopefully miss out on the rain, which sometimes it can rain this time of year.
Yeah.
But do you know what I love about countries like that? Like, you know, like I feel like we're all kind of a bit more like a nanny state now. Like I feel like we're getting more rules placed upon us and you can't do anything. Over there, I jump on a scooter. We shouldn't be doing this, but have no helmet, no shirt, just ride down, literally park on the beach. No, there's no parking ranger coming around trying to check out anything. You walk onto the beach, you do that, you come back, you know. You know the funny thing is,
I love that. I was in Vietnam and it was just like, no, it's wild and obviously there's good and bad, but you're in a lane like where in Ireland there'd be one car in that lane driving, and in Vietnam there's like 70 scooters side by side.
Yeah, you have a high possibility of dying, which is probably makes it more exciting. But I would have. I've got two funny stories about the scooter. That's quickly. But like when I first got to Thailand, it was just out of COVID. You didn't have to wear a helmet, but you had to wear a mask because of COVID. So you're on a scooter. I've got this mask, no helmet. Like, like cops are stopping people. They need to have a mask on. Like, you're on a scooter going 60 kilometers an hour. And then 2 months into the trip, I remember I was cruising along, and I looked to my right, and this person's doing a wheelie. Okay, on a scooter, doing a wheelie. I swear to God, it was a 10-year-old kid riding it, and he had his friend on the back holding him. And there's the kid in the back like this. There's two of them, 60 k's an hour, doing a wheelie. I'm like, oh my God.
It's
probably 10 years old.
It's wild. In Vietnam, you see, me and Kieran look across, we're on a scooter, and we're going about 6 miles an hour trying to not die, and you look across, and there's a mother, a father, on one scooter, a bale of hay, a sheep, and a baby. And like, the mother and father would have helmets on them, and the baby would have no helmet. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, there's a lot of rehab opportunities in those countries. I'll tell you that much.
It's fucking, but you are right. Like, there's something nice about just, if you fuck up, it's your own fault. Yeah, it's not like I stepped in a pothole and I'm going to sue the government for having the pothole. It's like, no, you fucking take responsibility for yourself here.
So it's kind of liberating in a way. Just make sure you get medical insurance. Just make sure you get medical insurance before you go. Yeah.
So maybe I'll be back in Australia. We had a nice swim and a beer in February.
Well, you know what? So I'm thinking this time next year I might have to do a Europe trip. So if I do, maybe I'll run a couple of seminars. So I might run one in Ireland or something. Yeah.
I think Ireland one would go well for you. I think a lot of GA coaches and stuff are like your stuff and probably use your stuff. So I think that would probably go well.
Yeah. Awesome.
So let me know.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Thank you.
No worries. Take care, man.
Hey guys, David here again. I hope you really enjoyed that episode with Graeme. Just a quick one on DGR Interactive, our member site. So Graeme actually has two guest presentations on the site. One is on curved linear running, or curvy linear running, or curved running, as I like to call it, in team sports. That's 22 minutes long, and he shows you how he starts with curved running, which is obviously so important, and then progresses to progressively more difficult and intense variations of curves. So typically people think of just one long curve, but actually Graeme is very inventive with how he does it, and it is a super important part of rehab. So that's 22 minutes long, and then he has another one on high speed running and sprinting for field sports, which is 15 minutes long. So in like 40 minutes or whatever, you would have learned a lot about curved running and high speed running and sprinting, both for team sports. Two super valuable short presentations, and he's someone who's actually using this work on a day-to-day basis, and so it works. It's not just theory. Also, Chris, or Coach Chris, who you probably know, has just put up a video on the site around getting the ribs up and the pelvis to anterior tilt and getting some length through the rectus. So that's definitely a class I think a lot of people, practical class, not very long at all, a lot of people will or should take, regardless of, you're just going to be working with so many people who need that, and so many people who are listening need to be able to do that much better. And I think he has 5 exercises back to back, which is a little bit of a progression to gently introduce an anterior tilt, gently introduce the ribs coming up, gently introduce some length through the rectus, and then making that slightly more dynamic, or slightly more loading that a little bit more as you go along. So super important class. That's 3 pieces of content on DGR Interactive that you should check out. And we also just put up a Biomechanics 101 course up there as well, which has 13 key lessons. Some people were, because there's like 200 hours of content on the member site, some people were a bit confused as to where to start. So I made a Biomechanics 101 course, which has 13 key lessons that I think everyone should start with in the beginning. And that's a super, like, every one of those I chose carefully to make sure you're getting different pieces of the puzzle. And it will set you up very much for success going forward with the rest of the site, and also just with the rest of your coaching, and getting really good results with your clients. So yeah, check out DGR Interactive. We'll put the link down in the bio. Thanks again to Graeme. Thanks to everyone for listening, and we will chat to you guys next time.